Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us at this news hour on Equinoxe Television, live from our headquarters in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. I am Babler Jonathan. Today was a tense day in Munya, Boya, southwest region of the Republic of Cameroon. Non-state armed group fighters got into a violent confrontation with security and defense forces. We'll bring to you details with our correspondent Derek Jato in the southwest region of Chief Town, Boya, and they are lamenting, they are suffering, they are crying out loud, they are sending distress calls to the Yaoundé administration. They are women and young girls who are frequently being raped by militants of the Nigerian terrorist sect Boko Haram in the far north region of the Republic of Cameroon. Accusing fingers are also pointing at some elements of the National Armed Forces. Those were our top stories. Enormous material damage has been recorded in a shooting between non-state armed group fighters and security and defense forces in Muya in the southwest regional chief town, Boya. Today, several vehicles were set ablaze, and today was a tense day. Derek Jato has more from Boya.
They're shooting and coming, I think.
9:50 a.m. Monday, June 14, 2021. Munya, a village in Boya subdivision, is just a stone throw away from here, and the separatist fighters are on the street, opening fire and coming closer.
They are coming.
And as the people around here take off, filling station might be contaminated, and that will be a bigger catastrophe. But unfortunately, this southwest regional capital don't have a fire rescue unit. And at press time, the flame was still on as the town that had woken up went back to sleep before noon.
Their cries are rising up to the sky, their lamentations, their sorrow, their pains increasing by the day. They are women and young girls frequently raped by militants of the Nigerian terrorist sect Boko Haram during their incursions on the far north region of the Republic of Cameroon. Accusing fingers are also pointing at some elements of the National Armed Forces of the Republic of Cameroon. Details with Equinoxe.
Women and many others in the far north region are rape victims in the fight against Boko Haram. They suffer this not only from Boko Haram, but also from some elements of the defense and security forces at the war front. She has been a victim of rape, and this has affected her education. She dropped out of school because she was shy to move in public. Following this phenomenon, which is fast growing in the region, the United Nations Development Programme is diving in to halt its growth with a training session aimed at sensitizing the military men on human rights principles. 500 soldiers took part in this training session in order to be edified on the exemplary behavior of a soldier at the war front to avoid intimidation, torture and rape, which sometimes plunge the population in fear. The soldiers, she says, have responsibility to protect civilians and not to indulge in deviant practices violating human rights. They are being trained on respect of human rights and on needs to shun rape.
Qu'est-ce qu'un droit de l'homme et tout, et là ils pourront savoir voilà tel droit de l'homme qu'on ne peut pas violer.
Gender-based violence, human rights, international humanitarian law all constitute subject of the training session in Mora, Mayo Sava division of the far north region, targeting defense and security forces of the multinational task force.
Par exemple, le droit à la vie.
We train them to respect the rights of citizens to live. Torture is prohibited as well as rape that predominates.
On a mené les enquêtes sur le terrain déjà sur la situation des droits de l'homme.
The edified are senior officers of the non-commissioned officers rank of the National Air Force, Navy and the elite corps of the Cameroonian Army.
Et généralement sur le terrain, on rencontre.
Generally, in the field, we encounter a lot of challenges, especially vulnerable women and children. We have been trained here on how we have to comport ourselves with them so as not to frustrate them. We embrace the beneficial training and we will apply it as we discharge our duties.
Nous allons les respecter et nous voulons que vous comptez sur nous.
Another participant in the session says the different trainings acquired will contribute to the humanization of conflict and the civil protection in a crisis environment.
Proposant trois thèmes. Le premier thème sur le DIH, le deuxième thème sur les droits de l'homme et le troisième thème, n'est-ce pas, les violences.
It should be recorded that the partial respect of these human rights was thanks to the international humanitarian law led to serious consequences, incriminating men in uniform. Today, it is hoped the seminar will be able to resolve some inconveniences observed in the ranks of soldiers at the war front.
They want electric energy supply, but they are saying no to failure by government to pay them indemnity or compensation for their properties destroyed in efforts to step up the supply of electricity in their locality. They are inhabitants of Melong in the Mongo Division, littoral region of the Republic of Cameroon. They stood up against the extension of an electricity supply network in that part of the country because they have not been compensated for their properties destroyed. And the Minister of Water and Energy Resources of the Republic of Cameroon, Gaston Elundu Esomba, was there and told them that they will be paid compensation, but they have to be patient. Details with Smanjika Ngebre.
For several weeks, the project to extend and rehabilitate energy network has been on a hold. This is so because the population of Melong, whose properties were destroyed as a result of the ongoing work, called for compensation before the work could continue.
The first problem we have is that we was not aware that the project was passing. So we was not prepared to remove our cash crop in the farm. So all those cash crop was destroyed. So that was the first problem we had. So and when we tried to take in touch with government, we was not heard at the first point because it have took us a lot of time before reaching here, seeing the minister.
It is for this reason that the Minister of Water and Energy Resources, Gaston Elundu, was in the Mongo Division to talk with the angry population.
Pour avoir l'adhésion totale des populations pour que cet important projet qu'il soit sauvé.
For several hours, the minister and the angry people had a tete-a-tete, and it was an opportunity for the minister to reassure this population of their imminent compensation. Meanwhile, those who laid complain of not being censored, though their properties were destroyed, the minister reassured them.
We are a little bit satisfied because you have come and we are here today, and you have given us a promise. And whatever we are thinking or we wish is that that promise should be fulfilled. We don't just want the promise to just be a word, just something talking like that. The promise the minister makes to us is that another commission is going to put on the field to recover all the things who have been destroyed. And they also promised us that they have a system to do it. So we are just waiting to see.
After Nkonsamba in the Mongo Division, the minister moved on to the West region. The ongoing project to extend and rehabilitate the energy network, according to the minister, will end by December 2021.
fallen traditional ruler, His Royal Highness Nobe Nangia Mbile, was laid to rest over the weekend in his native Mundemba village in the Indian Division Southwest region of the Republic of Cameroon. And a handful of mourners, including traditional and administrative authorities, notably the senior divisional officer of the Indian Division and many other traditional authorities of the Indian Division, including the president of the Mundemba Chiefs Conference, were present to pay homage to the fallen traditional authority. Now we go back to how it happened with Charles Ekome in this report.
Only way to Mundemba Indian Division, passing through Idinau in the southwest region, is by sea. The mortal remains of His Royal Highness Nangia Nobet Mbile is being transported to his native land. Upon arrival in Mundemba, traditional rites are being performed in the company of the Senior Divisional Officer for Dian Division, Fowang Lawrence, as well as traditional authorities. His mortal remains is later moved to the village traditional powerhouse for more rites to be performed. Afterwards, a funeral service is being organized at the Catholic Church, during which the Senior Divisional Officer decorates the deceased statesman posthumously. The mortal remains is later moved to the palace, where the delegation of the Southwest Chiefs Conference, under the guidance of its president, Chief Mafani, presented a wreath to symbolize fraternity, solidarity among chiefs of the region in honor of one of theirs. Born on 6 April 1956 in Bonge, N.N. Mbile had a fulfilled career from being a civil servant to a politician and human rights activist before being enthroned as chief of the Lipenja Batanga community in 2007. The entire community is saddened by his sudden exit, but his legacy forever lives on.
The senior divisional officer of the Indian Division, Fowang Lawrence, represented Prime Minister Chief Dr. Joseph John Gute during the burial of that traditional ruler in Mundemba Indian Division, southwest region of the Republic of Cameroon. And we talked to some of the mourners, including some traditional rulers. Take a listen to this extract.
Like Chimbile is falling down at this hour that we badly need him. Chimbile was a man who has that charisma to pull a crowd. Chimbile had a forgiving mind. It is actually a very great loss for the Indian people. It is actually a very great loss for the whole of the southwest region. It is actually a great loss for the Batanga people.
Chimbile was to us, the Bima people, like our father. Never we went in an occasion where we could meet him and he left us as orphans. He always thought that, my brothers of the Bima are around me and he could feed us the way we wanted him to feed us. We have lost a man that we don't know when we are going to replace him.
Chimbile was also very popular in Indian Division, not just because he was a member of parliament for Indian one, but he offered a lot to our people, not neglecting any one of them.
Chimbile was a very dynamic, a very open-handed man. Batanga people regret for losing him, but the will of God has accepted him to go.
Lost that very difficult to accept. Very, very bitter pill to swallow. But we the Batangas are strong people. Odio is a strong group of people. The family stands united. We hope and we have faith that we are going to extend his vision and accomplish.
Thanks a bunch to Edangota Lawrence for those images. Social Democratic Front SDF political party first vice president Honorable O.C. Joshua stands tall in the face of demands for his eviction from the party by the Littoral branch, and he maintains his membership after the National Executive Committee decided to dismiss a disciplinary file on the application of the expulsion Article 8.2 tabled by the Honorable Jean-Michel Nincho led Regional Bureau of the Social Democratic Front for the Littoral region. And during the National Executive Committee meeting at the weekend, they requested execution of Article 8.2 on Honorable O.C. Joshua was ruled out. He had been accused of anti-party actions, including attending the swearing-in ceremony of President Paul Biya in 2018, receiving money from the civil cabinet, and jointly signing a petition with a group of members of parliament, mostly from the ruling Cameroon People's Democratic Movement, CPD, and political party, calling on the United States Congress to refrain from interfering in Cameroon's affairs, notably the security crisis in the northwest and southwest regions. Now in news out of Cameroon, voter turnout in Algeria's presidential, or rather parliamentary election is reported to be low after calls for boycott coming from a major protest movement. Details with Equinoxe.
Initial reports point to a low turnout in Algeria's parliamentary election on Saturday. It's the first such poll since the gas-rich North African nation's long-time President Bouteflika was forced to resign 2 years ago. The Hirak protest movement had called for a boycott of the election over a crackdown by authorities on weekly rallies. New laws have all but banned demonstrations. The election was supposed to exemplify President Abdelmadjid Tebboun's new Algeria, with an emphasis on young candidates and those outside the political elite. But the fact that Tebboune was a prime minister under the deposed former president convinces many that the old regime is still in place. In its most recent update, given while polls were still open, Algeria's electoral authority said that less than 14.5% of the country's 24 million voters had cast ballots.
And that's it for the first part of this newscast. Talking Point is up next. Thank you for staying with us in Talking Points. Today we are receiving an educationist. He's also an entrepreneur. Dr. Nick Nguyen is the founder and president of St. Louis University Institute. Doctor, you're welcome.
Thank you, Nabla. Thank you.
Today we're going to be looking at some issues concerning the educational systems of many African countries, including Cameroon, problems that contribute to the wrong or poor foundation laid for many Africans, problems that affect them through their academic journey and even follow them into the professional world, contributing to poor performance and poor output. Doctor, begin with this quote of Mickey Gilbert Ngwane. He's an international development expert and coordinator of short professional courses at the Pan-African Institute for Development. And he says, I quote, many efforts in Africa target children, especially for education, yet we have inherently neglected the foundation. Instead of developing a formidable nursery and primary educational system, we spend much struggling to professionalize adults with a fractured primary education background.
Yeah, that's right. Mickey's a great guy. He's a very smart guy, and he nails it right on the head. And for us to understand the context in which he's writing, we have to say we have to be familiar with a couple of things. The first thing is that, and I will say it without blinking, that the educational system in Africa, including Cameroon, for the last 60 years has failed. It's not good. It's not good at all. And he is he's making these statements based on his observations on the ground. And if you ask me, what are the common problems of all African countries? We have a very high youth population which is not properly schooled. And that is a huge problem. They don't have the right tool sets to be able to solve the many problems we have in Africa. And that's why there's so much violence and poverty. Because if you ask me, what is the use of education if you have a good education, that education, number one, should be able to allow you to understand problems. Number two, should allow you to be able to solve problems. And number three, should be able to allow you to create wealth. And the fourth thing is, it allows you to be able to interact with your environment in a positive way. So when you see we cannot solve problems, we cannot interact with each other, and there's so much violence, the bottom line, if you trace it, it goes back to the education.
Goes right down to the foundation.
Yeah.
The foundation. What exactly are the issues, the problems that are contributing to the wrong foundation, which Mickey is describing, the poor foundation laid for many African children, many Africans in general, at the level of nursery and primary education?
Let's start off by saying that this education as we see it today, this formal education as we see it today, was brought by the white man and given to us. And when he was giving us this platform called education, he didn't really intend to get us to a point where we can be solving our own problems. He was more concerned with our ability to communicate with him and each other, and the problems as the white man saw them, he was looking more for resources, and if you could just get the minimum and get by, it would be okay. But today there's been a lot of demographic changes, and many people have come of age. Many youths are there, and there's the internet and and what have you, and people are beginning to realize that to have a good life, for instance, they have to go to Europe, they have to go to America and so on, and all those places are also flooded. So everybody is asking the question, what do we do to correct this? And even the Europeans are beginning to realize that they didn't give us the right education, and we, the Africans, must wake up to that challenge and correct that foundation. If we don't correct that foundation, nothing is going to work. Because when you talk to our university students and many of the youth, they're only tape recorders. They're only tape recorders. You have to have when you are schooled, you are introduced to information or principles, and then you learn to solve problems based on those principles. And you cannot solve those problems except you have an understanding. And probably I should explain the word wisdom to us so that we know where we're going to. What is wisdom? Wisdom is made up of two things: having knowledge plus understanding of the knowledge, what is part A, and then having the capacity to use that knowledge and the understanding to solve problems. And therefore, when you are able to solve problems meaningfully, efficiently, and effectively, and change your environment in a manner that is better than how you found it, then you are wise. But if you are wasteful, if you are violent, if you are a thief, a cheat, and can't use resources to improve people's lives, you are badly brought up. And once we are talking about the education, there's the technical part of the education, then the character part of education. What do I mean? For someone to succeed in life, all your education that you get in school amounts only to 25% of your capacity to succeed. 75% of that success depends on your character and attitude. And if you look at it very critically, when you see a country like Cameroon boiling, if you are trying to trace it, you realize that we are poorly brought up, we have no respect for ourselves, we have no respect for common good. So you throw me, you give me billions of francs to adults, ministers, responsible people to help their people to have health, and what they do, they steal the money. So where is it coming from? It's coming right from primary school. So it's not because somebody is a minister and has some gendarmes around him. He picked up those bad things from primary school, bad home training, and what have you. And just because you have someone in a court and so he's just an educated thief. So it's a problem.
There's already a big problem with the 75% of what a human being naturally needs to succeed.
Yeah.
That is what you don't acquire in school, but in the home, in the society, there's
Yes.
already a big problem there with issues of poor moral behavior.
Yes.
And all
Yes.
of those things. Now, the 25%.
And I might just say that it's not because we're not talking here about children going to Christian schools to get that. It has nothing to do with going to a Christian school. Because if you check our government, for instance, all of them are Christians and they're thieves. Now, but we are talking about a way of life, because I'm sure you probably saw this video of how children behave in Japanese schools, how responsible they are. I'm sure you saw it.
Yeah.
And it's just an issue of culture, how children are brought up, being responsible, respecting themselves, respecting common good, respecting the environment, and knowing that when you are hurting another person, you are hurting yourself. So it's a way of life, and when this way of life is absent, you are lost.
And the 25% that was expected, or that is expected to correct
Yes.
the other side, or to contribute in mitigating the moral decadence and the other issues that are coming up in the other 25% aspect of what a human being needs to succeed, is already having a major problem.
Yeah.
And Mickey goes ahead to say that the problem we have had in the past 4 decades is that we have increasingly many children with wrongly formatted brains.
That's right.
These are his words, and he says it's not the how many of children in our basic educational
Yes,
system
yes.
or the number of schools
Yeah.
established, but that's not the concern. He indicates that the concern should be on quality.
That's
And
right.
he goes ahead to say, trade quality for quantity at your own risk.
Correct.
What is it about trading quality for quantity at the level of primary and nursery schools?
It's very, very important. If you look at let's go to Israel. Israel happens to be a very small country, but very, very powerful, to the extent that you have a lot of Arab nations around it, and Israel is able to hold them at bay. Why is it so? It's because of the quality of the Israelites, the Israeli children. They are very disciplined, and in terms of their education, they are superb, and they're using technology to be able to help them to do that. So it's about quality, it's not quantity. You see, Africa has, I don't know how many states, and Africa has about 1.4 billion people, but I bet you that Israel can defeat Africa. Give 2 weeks and Israel will level out Africa. Why? It's the quality of people. Yet you have 1.4 billion people, but Israel has just a few million people and will put us down. So it's very, very important in these days of technology to realize that when you study, you should study in a way that you use technology to your advantage. You can be thousands of you, millions of you, but if you lack, if you have not developed the skills, the leadership skills, the management skills, the technological skills, the engineering skills to be able to harness and make the best of your environment, you will still be very weak. So it has to do with that. I'm sure you remember those our PhD students who were weeping in Yaoundé on the streets at the ministry. Why do you think they were weeping? They have the PhDs and they were weeping. They were weeping because technically they have the PhD, but it amounts to nothing. And then they wanted the minister to give them some appointment in some school so they can go and hide there and be deceiving children. It's part of the continuous deceit.
No, to be sure that we have actually diagnosed the real problem, is it about the system? Is it about those who are assigned or given the responsibility to lay the foundation, at the level of primary and nursery schools? Is it about proper follow-up by the education authorities, those in charge of education, notably basic education in this case?
Yes, the problems are multifactorial. There are many contributing factors to that. And to be able to understand that very well, let us go to Finland. In Finland, if you copy the educational system in Finland, or the philosophy, how they think and how they strategize and what they do, you will get it right. The answer is there. And in Finland, you would see that the teachers who are teaching in primary school, even those nursery schools, primary schools, they have master's degrees. And is not just having any master's degrees. The teachers in Finland are the best. That is, they are the best of the crop of children who go through secondary school, high school, and university. And you know, while our own best here, we think that our best should go to medical school, or I don't know what other school. But in Finland, their best are the teachers. While we have reversed things here, and we think that for people to teach in primary school, you can just get anybody who failed the O-levels or who has 2, 3, 4 O-levels, or what to go and teach your children in nursery and primary school. So these people, they end up, you know, messing up your kids, and the kids never get it right, because those early years, the children's brains are still very virgin, and then they are exploring. So anything that you give them at that material moment constitutes the foundation. So if you give the material that is not good and they lay that wrong foundation, it becomes an uphill task to uproot that and put in something new, and it's a huge problem. And we need to work and correct that and realize that our teachers should be the best. Our teachers are our foundation. Our teachers are our saviors, and then we need to give them the respect. We need to give them what it takes to be the best, and so on. And we have to avoid this cut and nail that we've been doing all this while.
And another issue is that most of those teachers are often not treated like rack. I want to say it like that. They often are not treated like nothing. Yes. In fact, many of them having peanuts, not even up to peanuts, so to say. Some of them not paid at all. Some of them even compelled to attend the churches, or the ministries of their proprietors in order to be paid. Some who do not do so, their salaries are slashed and so on.
That is, we need to come to a point where we give everybody their due. And you know, before I started the St. Louis University, one of the things I observed was that there were these two professions, the teaching corps and the nursing corps. One got the impression that when a child could not make it was not very bright in secondary school or high school, the parents would orient, okay, go and do teachers training or go and do nursing. It was, you know, the impression in the community was that if you were not good, you should go and do those, or you go to a technical college, which was completely wrong. And we got it all wrong, and we need to correct that. And the good thing is that, of course, you know, a dialogue is coming in the country. There's going to be reconciliation and unity, and everything is going to be to be redone. And education will be the number one thing that has to be corrected in this country. Given, of course, that for 4 years, 5 years running, children have not been going to school in West Cameroon. So all of that has to be corrected in such a way that when they start off again, they start on a good foot, but not continue to do the wrong things we have been doing for the last 60 years. And just to say again that Anglophones have been priding themselves. We have an Anglophone educational system which is better than the Francophone educational system. All of that is not true. I would like to tell all of you here that be it Anglophone education or Francophone education, as far as Cameroon is concerned, is wrong. We need to change to something else, and that something else is in Finland, it's in South Korea, it's in Malaysia, it's in Singapore, it's in Japan.
And with that change, certainly there will be something that should be done at the level of basic education, in particular, notably issues like looking at those who are teaching, revising all of that, looking at the books that are made available, the quantity of books. Many of these children that you see today, they are carrying heavy bags that are even weighing them down and so on, with just too many books. Is that really necessary?
If I had the power to change something, this is what I would do. First, the curriculum for studies in nursery school, primary school, secondary school, and universities will have to change. What we have now will go, and we'll have to change, and we do something else that works, so that even if a child were to drop from primary school, secondary school, or university, they would have capacity. It's about putting capacities in children, and we have to do it differently. What we've been doing now has been a total lie, and therefore you see a lot of children carrying books all over the whole place, reading from morning till evening, all night, and then blowing the midnight candle over nothing, and then having all these certificates that are no use, and being unable to polish their own shoes. So there's a huge problem that needs to be solved and needs to be addressed properly. And the sad thing is, the people in charge of the education themselves don't understand the stakes because they came from a system and they don't get it. Or probably when they get it, they are so afraid to state the facts. Of course, during the major national dialogue, there was something on education, but it was all beating around the bush. We have to do something to get it right. If we don't get it right, we have an Anglophone crisis now. If we don't correct the educational crisis, sooner or later, all the youths are going to rise up in the nation because of that bad education. They don't have capacities, they don't have a way forward, and therefore we must seek for ways and means of making our countries productive. And you cannot make your countries productive if your education is not good. We have got it wrong for all the past 60 years. While the French, who gave us the education, 60 years ago they were building aeroplanes, but they didn't care to teach us how to build bicycles. That's the problem.
And Mickey Gilbert Ngwane says, upgrade or continue to regress.
That's right. Because we have to upgrade. There's no question. It's one of those things, whether you like it or not, it's not politics. You have to just do it. And see the beautiful thing. Countries like Ivory Coast, Rwanda, and they are building factories to build computers so that their students could use these computers, cheap computers, to come up to speed. Nigeria is already doing it, but in Cameroon we don't, when we had the capacity. And it costs, I think in Ivory Coast, it costs only about 10 billion francs to put up such a thing. So we need to change. I don't know who cares us.
And the professionalization of education that is coming, like taking the second step before the first, according to Mickey. He seems to be indicating that the foundation was wrong, and they were trying to put up a very good building, trying to put a lot of paint on it,
that's right,
colors and everything. But it's practically something that is going to collapse anytime.
That's right. Let me tell you something, practical example. I'm an employer. I've employed people with first degrees, PhD to teach, in various technical areas in my school. And I noticed it a long time ago in St. Louis in Bamenda, that I had employed some gentlemen, I think there were about 2 or 3 of them, with master's degrees for the laboratory sciences. But what I noticed was that they kept teaching theory, and I asked them to, before at the interview I would say, do you know the practical work? They would say yes. Oh, I'm great at it. I would employ them, but in the course of the year they would not want to go to the lab, and they will keep on teaching children the theory, and it was the lady who came from the ladies and the gentlemen who were trained in the laboratory school in Bamenda, that were teaching the children what to do. But these ones who came with masters, they couldn't do it. You see, so you have this thing that is very wobbly.
Training and application.
Yes, it's very wobbly. So you have a lot of people who grow up and are blowing a lot of hot air up here, and are down here there's nothing. So the same thing, if you go to agriculture, you find the same thing. People talking big talk over here, and under here they can't grow corn. So we have a huge problem. Why is it so? Because we gave them a wrong foundation, and they kept going, and now they have become so big with PhDs and so on. Yet they fail to do the basic things. And now when you are trying to bend their backs over so that they get it right, it becomes a fight. And they think the problem is with you, and they don't realize that the problem is with them. But in reality, the problem is not with them. The problem is with the system. And because they were brought up like that, they don't see the difference.
Right, Dr. Nick William, educationist, entrepreneur. Thank you so much for those very interesting insights, and we hope that the message has gone through. That
Thank
the
you.
educational authorities in Cameroon and other African countries are taking note and are expected to take action.
The education must change. Watch my lips. It's been useless for the last 60 years. Thank you.
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. That's it for today. Equinoxe comes up next.
de lundi à vendredi sur Equinoxe Télévision.
Je dis ce que je comprends. Je suis en train de dire que les stades qui aujourd'hui n'existaient pas hier. Vous avez même dit qu'ils ne sortiront pas de terre, ils sont sortis de terre.
Quand il y a dysfonctionnement, quand est-ce qu'il peut y avoir dysfonctionnement? Dysfonctionnement, c'est qu'on annule les